My guest today is Jackie Lapin, founder of Historic Traveler, Historic Traveler International, and a pioneer in conscious media. A lifelong explorer, Jackie has visited over 500 historical sites across 50 countries. In today's episode, she shares how her passion for travel, historical storytelling, helped her build a global community for history lovers. Welcome to Lifeology.
Delighted to be here, James.
I literally said that like 7 times and kept messing up. So I am honored for you to be here today. It's so funny behind the scenes. People don't realize what happens, but I am so excited for you to be here today. You and I met many years ago, but I haven't had you on my show. So it's an honor for you to be here with us today.
Well, you and I have had this long relationship, and now I'm in an entirely different world. And so it's
Yes.
great to come here and kind of brief you on where I've gone. So we followed each other for a long time.
Yes, it's funny because when your publicist sent this to me, I was surprised. I was like, I had no idea about this because I knew about the conscious media, the publicity house that you work with or that you have, and then this part was a whole new aspect for me to learn about you. So 50 historical sites in 50 countries. I've been honored to be to 23 countries, but 50 countries. I can't imagine how that shaped your worldview.
Well, some of them are small Caribbean islands, but still it adds up. And I love it because, my first trip when I went, I was in my late 20s. I did a European trip. I thought I was going to go over with my cousins and join a group of architectural students. But, I discovered they were ugly Americans. They weren't the kind of people I wanted to be with. And said, all right, for the first time in my life, I'm going to be completely spontaneous and travel Europe on my own and decide what I'm going to do day to day. It was the most growthful experience of my life, having to step into my courage, my confidence, and just travel without a safety net for those 6 weeks. So I really believe that travel is one of the most powerful things people can do for themselves or their families.
When I was in undergrad, I was blessed to do a study abroad program for a year. And during the summer between my study abroad program in Spain, I just did the same thing as you. I traveled to Great Britain and to Ireland and many other places. But I remember just arriving in London, and I'd been there a couple times before, but just to sit there, like, oh my gosh, this is me and with no other people. And I had so many different experiences, so many. But I remember arriving in Cork. I took the ferry across from Swansea, Wales to Cork in Ireland. And to wake up and to see Ireland, I'm like, oh my goodness. But I met so many people in the different hostels I went to. You'd link together with a couple of people, go to another place and link with other people. And all the experiences I had shaped my life. So when I went home or back to the States, because I grew up in Canada and the US, but it was so interesting because my worldview changed so much. I had never imagined, I was like, I'm such a patriot, but when I went to other countries, they were such a patriot for their own country. And I was like, oh, I guess that's a possibility. I had no idea. And so it would just totally shape my worldview. So I definitely want to corroborate that and confirm that traveling just allows yourself to become so much more embodied and emboldened to be the person you should be.
And it allows you to be connected to the world in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. The knowledge, the people, the warmth, it restores your faith in humanity. People are so kind. I call them the angels. Oh, you look lost. How can I help you? Oh, you have a giant suitcase. Can I lift that on the train for you? It really makes you realize that we are all alike. We are all have the capacity for compassion and mutual connection. And so, it's just, and for me, you have the added overlay of history. That just really brings it alive for me.
Well, I think as well, because history obviously has a timestamp of when we read it, either in historical novels, but like you said, the other layer that's added to it. So for people who can't travel, obviously your blog, the Historic Travel, that's going to be ways for them to embody it and then live that. But how do you help people, I guess, decide what part of history they want you to go to? In other words, when you help them decide like where they want to travel, how to use the historical aspects of it to help them curate their own, I guess, locations or destinations?
Well, the first thing is the blog. At the Historic Traveler, I have a blog where I do individual posts about a city or a place, and then I take my photographs. I mean, I've been shooting photographs for over 4 decades. And I have curated them for the best and the most interesting that tell the story, like you were talking about, the storytelling skills that I bring into this. So I want you to know some things about it. What's the best places to see? Why you should see them? What's the history that goes into that place? And then I give you book recommendations. That's why our blog isn't like everybody else. It's not a travel blog. It's not a history blog. It's a blog that makes history come to life through books.
Mm,
So you
mm,
can first read before you go and with the
yeah.
recommendations. Then we have in our membership program we have the world's largest directory of historic novels, historic mysteries, and history books, where you can
Wow.
by city or by state or by country. So if you know you're
Wow.
going someplace, you can read up on the history in that place, whether you like to digest it in straight history or you love it in historic novels like I do.
Yeah.
And trust me, what I've learned from historic novels has filled in all of
Huh.
my knowledge of
Interesting.
history.
Yeah.
So, I depend on those researchers, those writers to do the research for me and make me
Yes.
feel as if I was there. And that's what I try to bring to you. So that's the first thing that we do. We also have a directory of insight guides. And I believe the insight guides
Hmm.
are the very best guides for history lovers. And so I have over 200 of them there. So if you think you're going to want to go to a particular place or a particular region, like all of Scandinavia, you can get an insight
Hmm.
guide and really explore from that. And then lastly, just from my standpoint, I have a photo gallery. And so we've
Mm.
got about 8 galleries, 9 galleries on there right now. There's going to be 200. So you can go and
Wow.
get a
Good Lord.
sense of what to see, what's worth. If you're a photographer, I'm kind of giving you the trail of what to
Yeah.
follow. So
Yeah.
that's it. And then, we have a community meeting, and in our community meetings, we help people figure out what are the best things to do, how to this.
Ah,
And then we also have a travel agent that does stuff for no cost, and a travel portal where you can book real
oh my gosh.
discount travel. So all of that kind of makes it really easy for you to sort of focus on when you do know where you want to go to get
Yeah.
there easily.
How do you decide which book should go into your directory?
Well, do you have a particular time frame that you like? Do you like the 16th century, the
Hmm.
medieval era, or the 18th
Hmm.
century,
Hmm.
the Victorian period, the
Fair.
Edwardian period? That's going to help figure out where you're going to focus your attention. Like if you
Hmm.
love the Regency period, you want to go to
Hmm.
Bath. That's the
Yeah.
place
Yes.
where
Yes.
the society, the
Hmm.
ton hung out.
Yes.
And in fact, frankly, when I took my mother to England, she was a Regency novel fanatic. And so, I mean, we could not pass up Bath. And in fact, the,
Mm.
the bus driver was going to pass the Royal Crescent, which is where all the nobility
Yeah. I know where
lived.
that is. Yeah.
And I literally had to beg the man to take us there so that my mother could not go home and say that she got this close and didn't see it. And he obliged
Oh
us.
my God.
So,
Oh,
it,
that's
it
wonderful.
depends on, what really. Now, for example, if you love witches, or
Uh-huh.
if you're interested in battles,
Uh-huh.
there's going to be places that you're going to go to
Yes.
and
Yes.
books you're going to read that are going to inform that particular interest of yours.
The more you evolve, and the more years of life you have, how have you found that the traveling has shaped you versus where you were versus who you are today? How has it influenced you?
Well, I think that it's opened my eyes to how other cultures live,
Hmm. Hmm.
and how that has meaning for my life as well.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think I've become way more patient and tolerant.
Hmm.
I think that I have become more appreciative of the beauty elsewhere besides of in the United
Yes.
States.
Yes. Yes.
Nature is just so stunning in so many places. I love the fact that I can find beauty in the details. For
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
in doorknobs or in
Hmm.
windowsills with flowers on them. It just opens up my sense of possibility and the appreciation for what the universe has provided.
Yes. Yes. What I think is amazing as well is the people who are part of the Short Traveler, the blog, and the membership community aspect. They're all like-minded because everyone wants to travel. So we have a universal connection between, just like you said, the understanding of life and the beauty of life, and removing any type of political aspects of it, but just to be able to be together and enjoy that. So it's so nice to have such a austere or so inclusive environment. When have you noticed people that have been there for a long time or even the shorter time? Have you noticed how they've evolved as well with being a part of this community?
I think so, yes. People are certainly telling me that they love the fact that they are with other people that they know. It's not
Hmm.
like they're in
Hmm.
isolation anymore.
Sure.
They're a closet historic
Hmm.
reader novel, or they're a closet history traveler. They've got other people to hang with. They've got people who can share their travel tips with them,
Hmm. Hmm.
experiences, even guides. They've got opportunities to people might introduce them to people locally, so go visit this person, this family, when you're in this country. All of those things bring a more well-rounded experience and
Yes.
sometimes
Yeah.
take the fear and intimidation out of travel. Somebody's
Sure.
carved that path for you.
Yeah. History has repeated itself in so many times, and so much beauty and joy of that. The Renaissance period, it was one period that I absolutely love because I like to think I'm a Renaissance person. Doesn't mean that I am, but I like to think that. Have you noticed throughout our culture that there is a part of a Renaissance coming back to a certain degree?
Certainly, absolutely. One of the nice things about the world today is that people follow their passions.
Hmm. Hmm.
And those passions aren't limited to you have to do this or you have to be this kind of a person to
Yes.
do this.
Yes.
It used to be that you could only be a man to do
Uh-huh.
certain
Uh-huh.
kinds of art,
Yep.
etc. Today, the world is open to anybody. And whatever your
Yes. Yes.
passion may be, from jewelry making to photography to painting to music, like yourself,
Mhm.
and some very obscure habits and hobbies, you can follow them. The internet makes
Yes.
it amazing that
Yes.
you can. You can connect
Yeah.
with followers all over the world in chat rooms. It's great because we are allowed to express ourselves fully in the ways that we do express ourselves.
Yes.
We can take our inspiration from history, we can take our
Yes.
inspiration from divine
Yes. Uh-huh.
messaging. We can take our
Uh-huh.
inspiration from people, from animals,
Yes.
from all kinds of things, from nature, and create a world that is more beautiful.
Yes, I've noticed throughout my travels just to see the different artisans or the artistry that's created as far as like glass blowers. Even I was in a place, I live here in Florida, and I went to a place in Lake Worth, Florida, and they had like a glass blowing exhibition, and I was so fascinated to see all that, the artistry of that. And so there's so many things that I don't see, day to day, but to see, in Europe and other places, all the different artisans that they still have their craft and their trade, and because sometimes people get so lost in the technology aspects of it, which is important, but to see the full, like you said, the full embodiment or the full aspects of how people can continue on the trade and the craft that was been done for millennia. So it's really interesting to see.
And some of these things, as you say, have been done throughout history. Like I was in a Chinese cloisonne um,
Mm,
place, and these people, their ancestors have been doing this work.
yeah.
So it's really wonderful, especially when you see families that have been doing it for millennia.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you think of? I mean, sure, there's many, but can you think of perhaps one trip or one situation that inspired you the most that really gave you a profound understanding of something? Can you describe that?
So when I hit 70, I
Uh-huh.
realized that there were less years ahead than there were behind. And so I said to myself, I want to see all the bucket list cities that I have missed,
Okay.
not
Oh.
photographed yet. And
Hmm.
so I did a 9-week trip in Europe. That was the most extraordinary experience
Mm,
because it lightened my soul. Now I can say, okay, this is something that has been so much in my desire. I now
mm.
have managed to accomplish it. Now it doesn't mean I'm stopping. I mean,
Sure.
Egypt
Yeah.
is
Of course.
next on my list,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
but just doing that in itself was transformative for me. It kind of allowed me
Yes.
to exhale. I've done this now.
Yes.
And the photos I got were absolutely amazing. It was a trip that I will never ever forget. It just lightened my soul.
Wow. I think that's one thing that, people don't realize that how what travel can do. And sometimes people have the means to be able to travel, some do not. But what I like about your blog is if people can't physically travel, they can read historical novels, or they can read the what you all discuss in your forums. And it allows people to transport them in their minds or in the vicarious experience. And so I think it's fantastic that people can still experience what you've experienced through the forums and through their ability to just vicariously experience what you all have experienced.
We call that armchair travel.
Yeah, there we go. I appreciate that. What's next for you? So, what's next for this historic travel blog?
So we put up blogs every 2 weeks. I
Okay.
add new photos to the photo galleries.
Uh-huh.
Our community, my team and I are always adding new information. We find
Mm.
articles, we find people. Our magazine is what I really love. The magazine is
Mm.
75
Oh,
pages. The first half of the
okay.
magazine is destinations. The second half of the magazine is media.
Oh.
That's books and television shows and movies. And for example, we also have the world's largest directory of historic TV dramas and where you can find them
Oh. Wow.
besides the book directory. We also, by the way, we have the world's largest directory of historic hotels, B&Bs, and inns. So that if you're looking to travel and you want to experience it from the standpoint of a place that really where history was made, you can do that.
Yeah.
So we include that in the magazine, but we also include interviews, and those some of those people are going to come
Oh.
on and participate in our book club, in our
Mm-hmm.
what we call our conclave, which is our community meeting. So
Mm-hmm.
we have the man who rescued all of the lighthouses in America, the
Oh,
founder
wow.
of the Lighthouse Foundation. Then we have
Oh.
we have an author who's written three different serials in three different periods
Wow.
of historic novels. Upcoming, we're going to have an article on graveyards, one
Ooh,
we're going to
interesting.
have
Okay.
on rescuing dude ranches. So those
Okay.
are the people that are doing it. And then we have spotlights on various destinations. We also have quizzes. We have all kinds of fun things. So the magazine is like fabulous and exciting and has a lot of my pretty pictures in it, which I love. Um, but I have book reviews on all different kinds of
Yeah.
books that are going to, history books, historic novels, series that kind of get you started if you
Yeah.
haven't checked out this book yet. So all of that on the front page of our homepage of the Historic Traveler, we have a featured book every month. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
and that
Wow.
changes every month. Right now, we have a book by Jodi Picoult called By Any Other Name, and it postulates that Shakespeare's plays, many of them were actually written by a woman who
Oh,
actually
interesting.
lived. You've
Hmm.
probably heard that men have been
Uh-huh.
the ones that
Uh-huh.
they think wrote
Uh-huh.
those plays, but
Uh-huh. Yeah.
this has very good evidence as to why at least some of them were written by a woman, and it's a great
Huh.
read. So,
Interesting. Isn't that
um,
was that Shakespeare in Love? Is that what the book was? The movie that had actually
the
had
movie, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, okay, that's right. But going back to what you said, that is I had no idea that it was so comprehensive. I mean, it's not just a blog, and I don't. I mean, I hate to minimize it by just saying that, but there's so much more to it, and I can hear the excitement in your voice, and I get excited as well as I hear that because it's as someone who would want to learn more about graveyards or hear more about the history of the history of saving the lighthouses. I mean, there's so much there, so many opportunities to learn. Real quickly with the gravedigger, or gravedigger, the graveyards rather. Like I automatically think about the different ways in which it was, why the body had to be faced a certain way, and all the different aspects of the methodology that went behind graveyards. I'd be fascinated to learn about that as well. So I'm going to speak with you offline to learn more about that particular part of it. But I mean, I guess there's so many different nuances of yes, it's traveling, but it's also perhaps traveling to a certain place in your city. For example, there's a graveyard where in my city, so I could travel there, if you will, and be able to read that and understand the different reasons of how it was created, et cetera. So I think that the travel can be perhaps not the traditional version of travel, but a more expansive view of what traveling really means as well.
Exactly. And there are nuances and interesting things in cities you may not know about. There's the big touristy thing, but there's
Mm-hmm.
always something else unique. For example, Dublin. I just did a blog on the Celtic gold that you will find in the
Mm-hmm.
Archaeological Museum in Dublin. That is extraordinary. I mean, the
Hmm.
beautiful artistry that went into this Celtic gold, and it tells you a lot about the early life Viking lifestyle in Ireland. So,
Hmm.
and the
It's interesting.
places where they dug it up. I mean, there's just fun things that you don't think. You might go to the
Yeah.
castle, but there's other stuff that really just brings it alive
Yeah.
for you.
And I appreciate that as well because everyone is heard all about the different touristy aspects of every different country, which is appropriate because that's historical context. But to understand how the natives, how the indigenous people, how they live and what they experience, and their own version of what's important to them, I think that really creates a full 3D, three-dimensional aspect of what it's like to live in a country like that, as opposed to just the
Well,
touristy
and I
components of
just
it.
did an interesting blog about the world's oldest continuing hospital that's still serving patients. And we're talking about a hospital that was started in the Middle Ages
Oh
in
my gosh!
France.
Wow!
And so it's like
Wow!
sometimes I'll do a specific place. Sometimes it'll be a
Hmm.
whole city. Sometimes
Yeah.
like I'll just do the bridges of Paris, so it's just a spotlight on one particular thing. But I
Hmm.
always look for things that you wouldn't already know on your own to
Yeah.
just
That's fair.
brings it to life, especially some of the fun history. I did one on the castle in Milan, and Il
Wow.
Moro was one of the most famous and probably evil leaders in the
Yes.
world. I mean, he killed off his
Yes.
nephew and all kinds
Mhm.
of fun things. But he also commissioned The Last Supper by
Oh,
Da
I didn't realize
Vinci,
that. Huh.
and which is just a few a walking distance from the castle. But in addition to that, Da Vinci created these canals in Milan, and
Hmm.
these canals are still there, with lined
Mm.
with fabulous restaurants and boutiques and fun. It's a great place to go at night. These were built by Leonardo da Vinci, and you get
Yeah.
to see it
Wow.
and you get to experience it. So that's why the blog is fun. I'm gonna take you on a pathway so that you get to feel history and
Yeah.
sense it and experience it sensually.
Well, on that note, we'll close out with Leonardo da Vinci and the thoughts in our mind about that. I'm so fascinating to see. If my viewers and listeners want to find out more information about you and to be a part of the Historic Traveler community, where are they finding all this information online?
First, come to thehistorictraveler.com, and I have to put the THE in the beginning. And then
Mhm.
sign up for the blog. There's a sign up at the bottom of the page. Therefore, you won't miss any blogs because every other week I'll be
Mhm.
sending you a list. But there's also cool stuff that I put in this newsletter. Like there was a recent archaeological dig you could join. So
Mm.
join the newsletter. And then if you're called, come join Historic Traveler International, which is our membership program. It's under
Okay.
$20 a month, all this stuff we were just talking about. And then I also have this great guide. If you want to take advantage of this guide, it's really very cool. It's called 20 International Cities Where You Can Immerse Yourself in Histories and the Books to Read to Make You Feel as If You Lived It. And you can grab that guide by going to thehistorictraveler.com/guide. And I'll repeat that again, thehistorictraveler.com/guide. Now, I can invite you also to come to one of our book clubs or our community conclaves. You can come for one time without being a member. We'd love to have you come and participate. Come play in our photo gallery. And, you're welcome to reach out to me at Jackie at thehistorictraveler.com. And let's get acquainted.
So many exciting things there that many viewers and listeners, I'm sure, will be a part of. Jackie Lapin, it has been my fantastic. I've had such a wonderful time with you today. Thank you so much for everything you continue to do and all the different medias and forums that you are a part of. So thank you for your wisdom, your knowledge. I'm like I said, very honored to have you today. So once again, my viewers and listeners also know that they can't find this information any other place. Simply go to the show notes at jamesmillerlifeology.com and I'll connect you with Jackie Lapin. Thank you once again, Jackie.